Actors, we've all got issues, so let's talk about them. You're listening to Actors with Issues, a self-help podcast for actors, by actors. Hello, ladies, gents, and non-binary friends, and welcome back to another episode of Actors with Issues, the self-help podcast for actors, by actors. Featuring special guests from TV, film, and Broadway, we take a deep dive into the world of entertainment and discuss what it means to be an actor today. I'm your host, Juan Ayala, and today we are joined by an actor, writer, and producer you know and love from Orphan First Kill, Ezra, CBC's Ghosting, and the upcoming horror comedy Hell of a Summer in theaters April 4th. Matthew Finlan, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me. I am an actor and I have issues, so I'm glad to be here.
So let's dive right into said issues. Um, let's go back to the early years first, though. What
Mm.
was life like growing up? Was there a specific moment or maybe an early role that you knew, like, okay, acting is for me, this is what I want to pursue? Or did it just sort of happen? Because I know it sort of just happens for people.
I wish it just happened. I will say I kind of fell into it because of community theater, which I think is how a lot of people start in church basements. I didn't go to church, but just that's where it happened in like a gymnasium. And I remember State Fair by Rodgers and Hammerstein was the first play I'd ever done. It was a musical. I was just a little chorus boy in a straw hat, wearing a flannel shirt. And I had so much fun. And I remember the thing that resonated with me the most was I was staying up so late with all of these adults. I was in like grade, maybe grade three or something. So I was pretty little.
Yeah.
And I remember just being like, wait, why has nobody told me to go to bed yet? Like I get to stay up till like I was like, it's after midnight. Oh my gosh. And then I got to the performing and the audience clapping. I was like, whoa, okay, this is cool. This has never happened before.
Yeah.
And then it started clicking that I was like, if the adults are having this much fun, it's got to be as cool as I think it is. And I was like, this is just basically doing make believe that I would do at recess or with my friends, except like people are really dedicated. Like they're making sure we wear the right things, we stand in the right place with the right lighting. And it was really fascinating to me. And then I remember watching Harry Potter, of all things. It came out that year and seeing like a young Daniel Radcliffe and being able to associate that like him and I weren't that different. And so if he could do that in a movie, then maybe me doing a play was kind of similar. And then I was just doomed. I just like they say you get bit by the bug. I think like I went out looking for it and I just was infected and was like, this is something I want to do for the rest of my life. And people were like telling me you could make money at it, which I was like, oh, I would do it for free, but okay, maybe you can make a living at this. And so I just kept going and doing it, and I'm still foolish enough to keep going and doing it. So I would say that's sort of what did it. There was no role, but it was community theater and
Yeah.
just being part of that community.
Yeah. Especially getting that sort of, because, when you're rehearsing, especially for community theater, sometimes you rehearse for months on end.
Yeah,
Wow. When you do like a production, like a professional production, it's like 3 weeks maybe these days.
exactly. Yeah.
But you're doing it for so long and it's sort of just like embedded in you. Okay, we're done now. But that first night that you get applause, that wave of sound, I feel like that
Oh
never
my God.
gets
Yeah.
old. It could be your 100th show, and it's just like, whew, you get that little adrenaline boost from it.
There
And I
is
love that that
something
never
really
goes away.
special too. About theater and a live interaction. You're so right. Like it sticks with you. And the way that the schedule always worked, it was like it just so happened my birthday would always be one of the shows that was in the weekend that we've been rehearsing for months, like you said, and then it would
Yeah.
just fall on that. And so that was like really special to have your birthday while on stage. Yeah, it's just like honestly a dream come true. So it's as I say this now, I'm like, yeah, no wonder I stuck with it. That's such a uh, resonating like childhood memory. It's so visceral. Every time I go into a theater, it sounds so cliche, but it's always like, it feels like home. And but it is a thing. Like I would imagine that's how, an athlete would feel in their turf, whether it's like a basketball court or like an arena or like, I don't know what other kind of sports there are, but that's what I
You're
would
asking the wrong
assume.
person. So is there, I'm curious with like mentorship and things like that, has there been like an older actor or just another actor who has sort of played that role of mentor for you, who has really supported you or guided you? And if not, how would having someone like that have affected you, especially sort of in the early years coming up?
That's such a good question. I think yes. And no, I can't think of like any one in particular
Mm.
actor necessarily who I am like aspire to, or I mean, parasocially all over the place. You know, I'll
Right.
watch a show or a TV thing and I'm like, yes, I love their career path. What are they doing? And read their autobiographies and stuff. But in terms of my personal life, I think it's honestly just being part of a really solid friend group that everybody was pursuing something artistic, be it in front of the camera or behind. And then a lot of directors and people you meet on set or on a project, or even some teachers that I had in my conservatory were really supportive while in the program, and then we sort of connected after, and then would talk to them, and so sometimes I was fortunate enough to work with them in a professional setting, which was really cool because then it felt like they let their guard down and you could get to know them a bit better. But yeah, even you know what? I'm gonna shout him out. My agent, Chris Oldfield, he's been such a North Star for me and like a sounding board for a lot. He's the only, I have other agents now, but he's the first guy who signed me and we've been together the whole time. So he's really seen my progression and he's seen me translate from stage to screen and he's helped me through that a bit. And that's a difficult thing to do sometimes. And so, yeah, I'd say Chris has been really helpful and probably the closest thing to a mentor. How would I benefit maybe from having a mentor that I didn't, a more specific person? I think I could have maybe learned some things a bit faster.
Mm.
Uh, I felt like I was learning on the job, which is a great way to do it. But sometimes I felt a bit green in maybe the wrong ways, walking into a room and then sort of having to self-reflect later and wonder if that was, yeah, just like a lesson or something that I needed to learn that I should have known going into that. Like, was I being too brash? Was I kind of like making confidence look like cockiness? And was I rubbing people the wrong
Mm.
way? Whereas I think, yeah, just uh, with time comes wisdom, and you just know what you need to, and more importantly, what you need not to in certain environments. Yeah.
And I'm curious with you sort of mentioned, working with people on sets, they also can sort of have a bit of an impact on you. Is there someone or a specific project that you worked on that you realized like, oh, that's how that works? Like maybe you're doing your first show versus a movie, or doing your first on-screen project after doing so much theater. Was there sort of a big learning experience on something?
Definite curve from stage to screen, for
Mm.
sure. And in fact, I still feel like every time we're on screen, it's like, okay, how do we do this? What are we doing now? Because I think each theater is pretty, they say theater is what you hear and film is what you see. And so
Mm.
it's very different. In theater, you almost sort of like beg their attention and you're kind of like, I dare you not to look at me. And I'll use that mentality when on screen, but on screen, your DOP and your director have a lot more control over where the audience is looking because they're literally controlling their scope. So you just have to kind of do your best to exist in the universe and support their vision. But in terms of like a project where it's kind of clicked, Orphan First Kill was the first movie I'd ever done, but it was also like the first time I got to sit in a role on screen for a while. And like
Mm.
I remember talking with the director Brent about it, and he'd given me some references, and I really felt like he took me under his wing, and he did a solid. Because fun fact, that role was originally written for the character to be like a Yale rower. He was supposed to be like super jacked, super buff, and I was like, I read the script and I was like, Brent, I'm not this guy. Like, why did you cast me? I don't think I can do it. And he was like, no, 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 Matthew, you are the perfect person to do it. I know you can. And we're actually going to change him from being a rower to being a fencer. And we're going to
Mm.
totally tailor him to your body type. Don't even worry about it. Like, you are this guy. So, him saying that, I don't know, maybe believe more in myself and my ability to embody a role and just trust and really walk forward with that. And then also on a project I did called Brazen, this Netflix film with Alyssa Milano, the director
Mm.
Monica Mitchell. She's still a dear friend. We still text and message. And she really, really, really took the time to make sure I was comfortable on set and both in Vancouver, a city I hadn't really spent much time in before. And it's everything from taking me out for like coffee or brunch on our days off to really talk about the project, but also life and career and where to go. And I had a lot of questions that I think anybody does when they're starting out in this industry that has no roadmap. And so, yeah, she really put a lot at ease. She connected me with a lot of people that I am now really grateful to call friends. And yeah, so Monica and Brent were like the two, I'd say, like pillars and directors from certain projects that like made a lot of pennies drop. And I'm still spending those coins, if that makes any sense.
And I want to, of course, we have to talk about Hell of a Summer. I did get to
Of
see it
course.
about a week or two ago at a screening, and I mean, I loved it. I'm such a horror movie nerd, and just grew up watching like all the Halloween movies, and obviously like Friday the 13th. Like when you think of a summer camp horror movie, you think of Camp Crystal Lake. Like that's the template. Very much so. But your character has some of the funniest moments, and I love that they're in the They're like throughout the trailers, and I'm like, right, because you need to let people know this is a comedy.
Hmm.
And did you feel a bit of pressure because you had mostly done like dramas and done some horror and thrillers, or was it like finally I get to be funny?
You know what? It was a little bit of finally I get to be funny. I'm not often funny on camera. I mean, maybe I should be more, who knows? But I like my bone structure says like upstate New York with like a dark secret. Like that's normally what I'm playing. I'm playing like a serial killer or some kid who's like, yeah, a little bit deranged. And Ezra, the character in Hell of a Summer, is very deranged, but for different reasons. And we kind of touched on it at the top of this, starting back in community theater, and Ezra being the camp, like the theater camp counselor at
Thespian
Camp
for sure.
Pineway. It felt like I was tapping into it was like an homage to a younger version of me, and with perhaps like the dials turned up a bit to make me
Mhm.
just a bit more flamboyant, a little bit more annoying, and a little bit more catty. But in terms of feeling the pressure, a little bit. Because I could feel on set, Ezra, he's the only queer character in the whole movie, and I wanted to make my people proud and also represent a version of ourselves that we could both laugh at and recognize ourselves in, which is a fine line when you're in this horror movie too, where you're also like, people are being brutally murdered, but we also want to kill them with laughter. What is the balance here? What's the fine line? And I really have to throw it to Finn Wolfhard and Billy Bryk, stars, directors, and writers of the project. They didn't shy away from letting me go as far in any direction that I wanted to. And then I think they've done a great job of curating a final piece. But I think in terms of the pressure, they just let us do what we wanted and really go wild and like balls to the wall and just kind of like no choice too dumb. As long as we get it the way it's written, we can always adjust it later, which I really do love in like being on screen. On stage, you really have to stick to the book, do it the one way, and you're
Yeah.
locked into a track. And that's athleticism in itself and really impressive.
Mhm.
On screen, you almost have to try out every choice you can in the day you're shooting that scene because you're only doing it for that moment and it will
Yeah.
never exist again unless you mess something up and you have to do reshoots, which does
Yeah.
happen. But really, the art is like, okay, let's try it a little like this. Okay, let's lean into that choice. Let's see if this is funny. But what about that punchline? Let's try it this way. What if I look over here on that line? Or, guys, I thought of a different word that I think is funnier than this one. Can I try it? And Finn and Billy were like, go for it, go for it, go for it. Um, Another thing that I think helped was I auditioned for Hell of a Summer while I was in San Francisco for another movie I'd done called My Fake Boyfriend. And I am just a cameo in this movie, but I play this like really, I kind of call him like the precursor to Ezra a little bit. So if fans listening to this, you might get the like real origin of Ezra is a character named Leo in My Fake Boyfriend. And I have this really long hair, pandemic haircut. We all had one. And yeah, he's just so over the top. He gets hit in the head with a cork from a champagne bottle and just makes it all about him. And so that movie had just premiered, and I was literally in the hotel room making this self-tape. And I was like, I had so much fun playing Leo. Let's make Ezra a version of Leo. Like they would be, I don't know, ex-boyfriends, or maybe they would have been brothers separated at birth. Who
Mhm.
knows? But they're like they exist in the same world. And so I think maybe that was a good touchstone to have while doing such like a thick horror slasher to remember the end goal of like have a little bit of Leo in Ezra. And also, I mean, it's a way of poking fun at all of the people I know and love in my life. I think there are certain lines Ezra says that as I watch, I go like, "Oh yeah, 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 that's my brother. Oh yeah, that's my friend. Oh yeah, that's my one of my exes." Because he's just so outrageous. He knows how to make every moment about himself when it shouldn't be about him at all. But I love it. Yeah.
In this movie, working with such a big ensemble as well, was there, did it feel a bit theatery because it was sort of such a big cast? Because, with some films, it could be very sort of an isolated story and whatnot, and it doesn't feel that much. But of course, it also being a pretty broad comedy and whatnot, did it feel a bit like theater, or was it sort of a balance between that?
You know, you were right in that like it being so ensemble based when we were rehearsing, it was very like a play. We'd be
Mm,
all in one room, we'd be bouncing it back and forth and whatever and keeping it very fresh. And it did feel like one of those big scenes like August Osage County, we're all around the dining room table, let's
yeah.
go, or 12 Angry Men or something, a chorus line, here we are, babes. And so that in that respect, yes. The other really cool thing that it took it even one step further than theater was that we all stayed together in this it was a fishing lodge in Perth called Sterling Lodge, is what I think it was. But it was we were with all these fishermen. So we would be getting home as a whole cast at like 5 in the morning because we were doing night shoots. And everybody at this lodge would be waking up because they were all going out to go fishing. And it was this really weird world where we felt like we had this massive house to ourselves. And we were yeah, staying in this house and then going to the summer camp to shoot and going back to this house and back to this camp. So it felt like we were Camp Pineway for real. And
Hmm.
that made it quite easy. And I don't know if I've ever experienced that in a play. You do get quite close to people in your dressing room for sure, but this was like a whole new level of familiarity. Like even the green rooms were just different cabins. So we would all just be sitting in a cabin and then they'd call us to set and we'd go and do it. And, that I don't know. It was like theater, but a little bit deeper, a little bit more intense. I think almost like a blood pact now.
Hmm.
We all are trauma.
So with Hell of a Summer, obviously we're not going to get into spoilers of like who is behind the mask or anything,
Mhm.
because that would ruin the experience for anyone who wants to watch this first and then watch the movie. But
Exactly.
I'm curious because you guys were rehearsing, like, did you know up front who was behind the mask, or was that sort of discovered as you guys were reading through the script? And like, how much of a shock was it when you found out that whole twist?
Honestly, good twist, good shock. I didn't know. It's funny when you're auditioning for these scenes, like I imagine a large audience is actors. So you all know. If anybody's listening to this who isn't auditioning for projects right now, you may not know. It's rare you're given the full script.
Mhm.
So you're just given these little snippets, these scenes that kind of give an indication of your character, but not the overarching thing. And so, yeah, I didn't get the full script until what I was like 2 days before or something. And then there was a little bit of a COVID scare. So I didn't even get to go to the cast read through, which was a
Oh,
whole other drama thing aside. I didn't have COVID, some I had a close contact, all good. But just like you say, like you're reading it through and you're trying to remember that feeling when you're first reading the script because that's important. That's what the audience is going to be going through.
mm.
And yeah, when it was revealed to me, I was like, okay, work, yes. I don't want to give too much away, so I maybe I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah,
But the thing I do love about the script and the project is such such an homage to like classic horror tropes, what we know and love with seen through a new lens, and that's what I think Finn and Billy did a great job with. And yeah, yeah, the script sings. I hope people are as shocked as I was when they read when
yeah,
they get to watch it. They're not going to read
yeah.
it unless they turn this into a book, which I don't know why they would.
Before we wrap up, we have what we call our $1 million question,
Hmm.
which is the one that is definitely asked by most of the actors who watch the show, who follow us on like Reddit and things like that. It's always about like, how do I get my first agent? I need a manager. I feel like I'm stuck because I self-submitting just isn't working and all of that. So, what advice do you have for a young actor who's like looking for that first rep to
Oh
sort of
my
get the
God.
ball rolling?
Yes. Okay. If it's any consolation or like hope to the listeners, I met with it was in the double digits of agencies and nobody was signing me. And you can ask my colleagues at school, this isn't me just being cocky. I was one of the favorited kids of my conservatory year. I was really given a lot of opportunities to shine. So I graduated feeling like I was hot shit, come at me world, like take me by storm. They did not. That did not happen. And so my advice would be, speaking from experience, say yes to everything and work with your friends. Work with your friends. They're the people you know and trust. You're going to have the best chemistry with them. And even if you're working for nothing, you're going to be having a good time. Then this is a multi-step process. Work with your friends so you have like tangible events or showcases to invite agents to. And if your contact that you're reaching out to doesn't respond, talk to the people in the cast and see if they're represented. And then kind of ask, but tell them, like, hey, I'm going to be reaching out to your agency. Do you mind if I drop your name and your agent and invite them to this show? Because that's how I got my agent. My friend Priscilla, she was being represented by Chris, and I had been seen by everybody. They had all said no. And basically, I was like, hey, Priscilla, can I just write to your agent and let him know that if he's coming to the show opening night, like that I'm looking for an agent and I would really love if he considered representing me? And she was like, sure, babe, knock yourself out. That's how you know who your true friends are, also. If a friend gets
Yeah.
cagey and they don't want to do that, maybe they're not your friend anymore.
Yeah.
So Priscilla was like, go for it. And so I wrote to Chris. And then after the show, I stopped him in the lobby. And before he could even get a word in, I went, okay, Chris, I just need you to know that that was just the tip of the iceberg of what I'm capable of. And if
Uh huh.
you liked what you saw, I can do so much more. And I think we should talk. And then he went, no, I loved it. I think we should talk, Matt. And I'll email you on Monday. And that was, it changed my world. And I realized I had been so like waiting for someone to offer me something. And I was like, no, I have to go and get it.
Yeah.
Because that's also what agents are looking for. Because I'll be honest, once you get an agent, they don't do all the work for you.
Yeah.
They kind of present the instructions to you and then they go, okay, I need you, here's your audition, knock it out of the park. But they're not holding your hand to learn the lines, to get the lighting
Hmm.
right, perform it perfectly. They're just sort of unlocking some doors for you. You still have to walk through that door and show up. So I believe that's what Chris saw, was that I was like knocking on his door and not taking no for an answer. And so that would be my main advice for anybody who's unrepresented and looking for it. Talk to your peers who possibly are, or colleagues that you don't know super well, but they're maybe represented, and just reach out to the agencies they have. The worst case is you are no worse off than you already are. You can just get a no. And as long as you can handle that rejection, you're like 90% ahead of everybody else. That's what I think. This industry is so much rejection.
Yeah.
So if you're fine with that, you're golden. Like just keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just sort of like you said, it's dealing with rejection. It's the worst thing that can happen is to say no, and then you just move on. It's back to where you were 5 minutes ago before you said anything. Like it's there's
Truly.
very little to lose there. We
Yeah.
have just
No.
a couple more minutes left, so we're gonna finish with a quick game. So you
Oh, I
just
love
choose
it.
a number, one, two, or three, and that decides the game that we play.
Okay, two.
Okay, so this is a game called For the First Time. So it's a game of life and career first. So what is the first movie you saw in theaters?
Okay, the one that's coming to my brain is either the Tigger movie or the Pokemon movie.
Oh, good, good.
Whichever one
That's a
came
good
out
first
first
one.
would be the answer. Yeah.
Yeah. What was your first ever acting role?
The State Fair, I mentioned
Mhm.
it. Rodgers and Hammerstein.
What was the first non-acting job you ever had?
Um, Tim Hortons. Brutal. Brutal, brutal, brutal. I made a vow to never wear a hairnet ever again.
It's a good vow. Where was your first flight to?
I think to Halifax.
Mhm. First person you call when you book a job?
Ooh, my mom.
First time you saw yourself on TV?
It was in a commercial, actually. I was so little. It was for anti-smoking. Yeah,
Like a
as a boy.
PSA type of thing?
Yeah, yeah, something like that. I was just like jumping in slow motion. If anybody can find it, that would be a real deep cut.
First time you were starstruck?
Um, you know what? I got to work. Julia Stiles played my mom, and
Hmm.
Isabel Furman played my sister. More like I played her brother. But I remember when I met Julia, I was like, and she had brown hair at the time, so I didn't recognize her right away. But then when it all clicked, it was like slow motion. And I sat beside her and I ordered gorgonzola, and then she was like, "It's pronounced gorgonzola," and I was like, "I'm an idiot."
Gorgonzola.
I know. I was like, "Is it really big?" Anyway, I love Julia.
And last question, in 10 words or less, what advice would you give to a young actor?
Mm. Consistency is worth more than talent.
Love that.
That's what I'd say. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Matthew, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. Such a delight to speak with you. And if anyone wants to give you a follow anywhere on social media, where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Matthew Finlan. Yeah, but
Awesome.
thank you so much for having me. This was amazing. I love talking about myself. So anytime.
And for everyone listening, everyone watching, you can see Matthew in Hell of a Summer in theaters April 4th. And we will catch you on the next episode of Actors with Issues. Thanks for joining us. Actors with Issues is hosted and produced by Juan Ayala. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe to our YouTube channel or on the podcast platform you're listening to. Visit actorswithissues.com for exclusive news and reviews, and give us a follow on Instagram and TikTok at Actors with Issues.